Good morning. My name is Paul J. Frisco, and I am the interview coordinator for the Center for World War II Studies and Conflict Resolutions here on the campus of Brookdale Community College at Lincroft, New Jersey, under the directorship of Paul Zygo. This morning we are privileged to have, first of all, Mr. Brian Boyce, who is a volunteer of the center, to participate in this interview. But more importantly, our star of the moment is Mr. Ralph A. Mottola, who is a member of the Brooklyn Key Chapter of New York American Ex-Prisoners of War. Ralph, why don't you begin by telling us when and how you got into the service and take it from there.
Okay. Well, I received my letter from the president, what was it? I think it was May 6, 1943, and was actually inducted May 13th, 1943. I remember going to Manhattan. My father, my brother drove me over, and bingo, then I was inducted into the service in one of the buildings in Manhattan. I forget the name of the building anyhow. I was put on a bus and taken to Camp Upton, Long Island. Actually, the first night I was in the service, would you believe, they woke me up about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I got KP, would you believe, the first day in the service. Well, I stayed there a very short time. I don't remember exactly how many days, but after Camp Upton, I was shipped to Camp Shelby in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, for my basic training. I trained there for 13 months in the 69th Division, the 273rd Regiment of the 69th Division. After the 13 weeks, we were ready to go overseas. And lo and behold, instead of going over with the guys that I knew and that I trained with, I went over as a replacement, which is not the best thing in the world to be, a replacement. You know, when you get over there as a replacement, you don't know anybody, you don't know you, and it's awful. It's awful. Anyhow, before going overseas, we left Camp Shelby, and we got into Camp George G. Meade in Maryland. And I recall so vividly, a colonel came along and asked questions of all of us, what was our feeling of like going overseas. And for the most part, I think most guys who had their basic training got some time to go home before they went overseas. We were going over without any kind of leave, so we complained bitterly. Luckily for us, we were able to get a 3-day leave, so I went home, saw my family, and after 3 days came back to Camp George E. Meade, and then we went to Camp, what was that place? Place in Virginia, anyhow. And we were there for a short period of time, and after which we were boarded a ship out of Newport News. It was the Empress of Scotland. It was an English ship. I remember it because the food on the ship was so rotten. I practically starved. They fed us fish in the morning for breakfast. It was horrible. Anyhow, luckily for me, after 5 days, I arrived in French Morocco, Port Leoti, which is adjacent to Casablanca. So I was lucky. I had a tooth removed yesterday, and I'm kind of uncomfortable.
Take your time.
Well, anyhow, I got into Camp Port Leoti, adjacent to Casablanca, after 5 days, and I wound up in the 36th Infantry Division, which is a Texas National Guard outfit. Now, again, I repeat, I didn't know a soul. They don't know me, etc., etc. So I get assigned to Company H, 2nd Battalion, 141st Regiment of the 36th Division. So we trained in the mountains, the Atlas Mountains, for a short period of time. By the way, I think when I went over, it was probably around August, I think it was August of 43. And after training in the Atlas Mountains, we were shipped to, I think it was Algiers, and then to Oran, And from Oran, I boarded another English ship and was transported 2 days. I went into the port of Naples. When I arrived in the port of Naples, we were getting bombed by the German planes. And when I debarked off the ship, and you know, a few of my guys have told me the same thing. Getting off the ship, we had to get off on a capsized ship that was in the harbor, and it was kind of a tricky thing. I'll never forget it. Trying to walk to the shore, getting off the English ship onto this capsized ship to the shore. Well, anyhow, now I'm in Naples, and Naples is a shambles. By the way, this is a short time after the invasion. Luckily for me, I didn't have to endure the invasion itself, which was on September the 9th. Well, anyhow, we're in Naples for a short period of time, and at that point, I almost joined the paratroopers. I and a couple of other guys were talking about joining the paratroopers, and lucky for me, I didn't. I don't think it would have been a good move. Well, then came the day of reckoning. After getting into the 3rd, 6th Division, I remember going to see, I don't know, the adjutant, the commander, what the heck ever. And he tells me the company to which I'm assigned, which, as I repeat, was the H Company, 2nd Battalion. And, okay, so now I'm part of the 3rd, 6th Division. Now, we got to the point, at least for our group of replacements, we're ready to go up to the front lines. And, you know, when you get up to the front lines, they take you up on trucks. The first thing they do, obviously, is you get all your barrack bags and all your clothing, whatever you have, you're going to leave behind, and you board the trucks, and they take you up to a point close to the front lines. And, of course, the engineers have to clear a path through the minefields, and they have tape, white tape that you can see, you know, in the dark. And lo and behold, I find myself, this is in the mountains of Italy, and I'm walking up the mountain, and I see a couple of GIs walking with a stretcher with a dead German guy. Now, this is the first dead person I see on up in the war. And I had a very, very funny feeling, and I said to myself, God, a guy could get killed. I'm not being funny. But I said that to myself, and then I said, you know, I felt sad because I said, God, this guy is a parent, he's a brother, he's an uncle, he's a friend. He's German, but he's dead. And
Ralph, this is on the front lines that you're talking
Yeah,
about.
this in Italy.
Fine, he doesn't want to be interrupted. He wants to tell the story.
Yeah, let me tell the story, and then you can ask all the questions you want. So anyhow, this happened, and as I said, I was affected dramatically by the fact that the first dead guy is German, but, you know, he's still a human being. Okay, so I get up there, and they tell me, dig in. Dig in. I'm up in the high mountains. By the way, it's the coldest winter on record for that half century in Europe. So rather than dig in, actually I saw a hole next to a little building, and I jumped in the hole. Now, I don't know. In retrospect, you'd think in terms of, you know, they were so clever, the Germans, and I suppose most armies with booby traps and the like, you know. But luckily for me, I got in this hole and nothing happened. Adjacent to this hole was a little building with another big hole, and when I had occasion to look in that hole, there was all kinds of boxes in there. I don't know what that was in there. Anyhow, I'm in this foxhole, and as I said, you know, you're crouched in there, it's bitter cold, and I'm just in the hole until you get orders. And I remember distinctly, which, you know, I think about it, even though it's so many years ago, I look back at some of the things that occurred. And one of the things I remember distinctly was in the morning, it was so foggy and it was so dense, the fog, I said, gee, I can't see 10 feet ahead of me, in front of me. So that means if I can't see, they can't see me. So I got up out of the hole and stretched my legs. Okay? And of course, you know, during this period of time, there's all kinds of artillery fire coming in, and mortar fire and small arms fire. In fact, during the night, you can see the traces, all this firing. Anyhow, I don't know how long I was in that particular position, and now we come to the day of reckoning, if you will. never forget it. It was, now we're into January 21st. And Mark Clark, who was the 5th Army commander, instructed our General Fred Clark, who was the 36th Division commander, that we're going to cross the Rapido River, okay? Which they called it Rapido for a good reason. It was so very swift. And our general was vehemently opposed to this crossing because he had been in World War I, and he had a similar incident where the Germans were going to do this, and they just wiped the Germans out. So even though he was opposed to the crossing, he takes his marching orders just like Clark did, and we do. Everybody takes their marching orders. And it was a clear day, and we're in the valley. The Germans are always up on the high ground, and they were brilliant engineers in the caves and all this kind of stuff. And it's obvious. It had to be obvious that this thing was going to fail. The whole operation had to fail because, again, they're up in the high ground. It's clear weather. They're looking down us. We're moving boats up to the river and all this kind of stuff. Okay, so anyhow, our division starts to cross the Rapido on the night of the day of the 21st. Okay. I, on the other hand, didn't cross that river until, I think it was about 11 o'clock on the night of January 21st. Now, when I crossed, I went over on a pontoon bridge with a plank that perhaps was this wide, and it's icy, cold, and you know what? I got my combat boots on, I got my winter underwear on, I got my ODs on, the combat suit, I got my heavy winter coat on, I got my pack on my back, I got a rifle on my back, I have a radio on my shoulder, and I have 2 boxes each, one box of 50 caliber ammunition in each hand, and I'm crossing this plank, and the pontoon is going like this, and I said, God, if I go over, I'm a dead duck. I'll never survive. I'm not a swimmer. I was really frightened crossing that pontoon bridge, but I got over anyhow. And again, I repeat, it's like 11 o'clock on the 21st of January. Well, we get over there, and the artillery fire was just absolutely incredible, just totally horrible. And you guys screaming, and it was terrible. Anyhow, get in there. And now I remember it's like 4:15 in the morning, and the major shouts, "Dig in." Well, by the way, a bunch of us were in a long ditch, okay? And the major hollers out, "Dig in. Dig in." It's pitch black. Where do you dig in? You just go out of the ditch and you start digging a hole. And sure enough, I start digging. I got so deep that the water was coming up. And even though the ground was rock hard, but I got down there, boy, I'll tell you. In all this time that I'm digging, I'm shoveling the dirt on a parapet. You guys know what a parapet is, right? Okay? And in addition to the artillery fire and the small arms, I'm hearing pings coming through my parapet, I said, I know that somebody's firing at me specifically. And, it was so terrible. I mean, that artillery, hour after hour after hour. And about noon, I got hungry. I said, what, are you crazy? How could you get hungry in this kind of a situation? And by the way, whether it was valorous or cowardly or not, I kept saying to myself all that time that I'm digging, going on, God, I know this is it. Today is it. I'm going to get it. I know I'm going to get it. And I kept praying I'd get hit in the shoulder or in the rump, and all that kind of stuff. So anyhow, it comes 12 o'clock. I leaped out of a hole. I timed the artillery shells. They fire in volleys. I leaped out of the hole. I grabbed my pack, and I was eating. And I'm saying to myself, you got some kind of dope. How could you be hungry at a time like this? Anyhow, we just kept getting that artillery fire, and they blew the bridges out. And by the way, they had built some other bridges, the pontoons and bridges. They were blown out. So we got the river on our back, and about 4:15 in the afternoon of January 22nd, they put smoke around us, and Germans come down to the mountains, and they're hollering, Americana Honda Ho, Americana Honda Ho, hands up. So I peek out of my hole, and I see a lot of GIs getting out of the hole. So what am I going to do? I did the same thing. I might add that, by the way, this is absolute God's truth. There was a German with a Schmeisser, maybe 75 feet from me, 100 feet. And I said, God, we're trained to kill. But I said, if I shoot at that guy, number one, I may miss him. And I remember, if anybody saw the movie Sergeant York, you remember there was a part in there where York took 131 prisoners, and they were lined up, the Germans, and one of the Germans took a hand grenade out and threw it and killed one of our Americans. And I said, if I shoot at this guy, if I hit him, a lot of our guys are going to die. So I elected not to shoot at him, okay? I don't know. Maybe it was stupid, maybe it was coward. I don't know. Anyhow, I get out of the hole, and they're rounding us up. Now we have to go through the minefield, the German minefield. So they have tape also, and the big signs, Achtung, Minen, and all that kind of stuff. So they march us through their side of the line, and they line us up. Now this is like 4:15 in the afternoon when I got out of the hole, and now it's starting to get dark. So we go through on their side of the line. Now we're enduring our artillery falling on us, okay? Okay, first we got the German artillery and mortar fire. Now we're getting American artillery. They line us up, and they're shooting. Haylofts are burning, and little houses are burning. And another crazy thing, this is weird. I had a chocolate bar in my pocket, and luckily for me, I ate it as they were searching us. I said, these SOBs are not going to get my chocolate bar. And it's fortunate that I ate it, because we didn't get any food for a long time. So that sustained me for some period. Well, anyhow, they line us up, they take my school ring, they took my watch, and they took $48 out of my pocket, $48. Okay, they get through by searching us, and they march us, I don't know how far, but they stuck us in a miserable, ugly cellar that was so filthy and disgusting, like sardines. And we stayed there in this cellar overnight, and then they marched us, I don't know where, and it turned out to be a prison camp in Italy. And I was there a number of days, and after a number of days, they didn't give us any food, so I got mighty hungry. And I ravaged the cans, the garbage cans that the Germans were using. I went through the cans to find a scrap of food. While I'm in this Italian prison, this camp in Italy, I run into an Air Corps guy. I said, Air Corps, I said, what are you doing here? I was shot down over Angio, he tells me. I said, Angio? What the hell is Angio? I never heard of Angio in my life. The day that we crossed the Rapido was the day that we invaded Angio. Now, there's a story behind this. And this you can substantiate if you go through your history. Mark Clark wanted the 36th and other units to cross the river so that the Anzio beachhead could be established. His philosophy was, or his thoughts were, that by crossing the river, it would bring on the German 10th Army from the Anzio beachhead so that they could succeed. But in the meantime, we were cannon fodder, okay? Now, I say this, let me go ahead of myself, because after the war, you remember I told you this was a Texas National Guard outfit. After the war, the people of Texas took Mark Clark before Congress, okay, to explain that horrible experience. We had 1,600 casualties. Two regiments of that division were wiped out. So the people took him before Congress. Of course, he was exonerated. He takes orders like everybody else. Okay, so the guy says, oh, I was shot down over, ouch, my leg. I was shot down over Anzio. Okay. Finally, get out of here, fly. Finally, they stick us in a boxcar. So we endured a trip before that, I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. They stuck us in trucks, and they transported us through Rome to a place north of Rome. And this is another thing I'll never forget. We're up in a high mountain on a cliff, and I couldn't believe that trucks could go up this mountain. And I'm looking down at the valley at Rome, and what a sight. It was spectacular. Anyhow, they stuck us in a POW camp, little place north of Rome. After which they put us in the boxcar now, and 5 days in the boxcar, locked up like a sardine. Sick guys with a little can in the corner to do our business. After which we get up through the Brenner Pass, and I wound up in the British POW camp. At that particular location, I remember so vividly, one of the English guys gave me a sip of condensed milk, and I could feel my body almost surge just from that milk. We were there a couple of days, and then I went to, I think it was, I don't know, Stalag 4B or
Do you want to show
2B.
something for the camera?
Well, here's a little map here, but whatever. But I don't recall if I went to, I think it was 2B first, and then 4B or vice versa. But anyhow, before that, they stuck us in a camp, and it had the look of a death camp, you know? It looked so horrible. There was something about it that was just funny. And we were put into a place to shower. And, you know, you're even more vulnerable when you're naked. And I'm looking up at, there's apertures up along the top of the wall. And you know, you hear about these stories about the political and the Jews, how they gassed and all that stuff. And I was frightened there. As we were before the shower, anyhow, a technician, I guess, came by and gave us a shot in the chest, downward. First time I ever got a shot like that, other than in the arm or in the rump. So I'm saying, what is this? I don't know what's going on. But luckily for us, it was just a shower. After a couple of days in that camp, again, I repeat, I wound up either in 2B or 4B. All right, short period in that camp. And then I went into the second of the two stalags, either 4B or 2B. I was there a short time, and all I got was potato peel soup for the time that I was in that POW camp.
Ralph, when they took you to the camp, what was it like when you first got there to be like introduced to your fellow prisoners? And
No, there's no introduction. This is
No?
war. This is no introduction. You're just one of a whole bunch of POWs. Anyhow. At this particular camp, Stalag, they sent 48 of us, 48 Americans on an Arbeitskommando, which is a work party. So, bingo. We went up to East Prussia, a little town called Koppenow, Koppenow. And it's not, like I guess it would be the biggest place is Königsberg or Warsaw. And so there I went, 48 of us. We were put in a room maybe not bigger than this, 48 of us with double-decker bunk beds and straw mattresses with plenty of lice and germs. And each day we would be roused out. We'd be naturally locked up every night, chains on the door, locks on the door. And in the morning we'd be rousted and go up in the courtyard, and the straw boss, whatever you want to call them, would designate different guys for different jobs. You either went out and spread manure, or you pitched hay, or you picked the potatoes, or you planted, or something like that. And after which, when you were finished at night, you could come back. And by the way, I must tell you this. When we went out on our duties, whatever group we were in, we sang all the American patriotic songs at the top of our lungs so that we'd keep our morale up. Okay, and by the way, you know, people say, whoa, you went to work on a farm, so you must have been fed good. Baloney. No extra food. Luckily for us, when the railroads weren't bombed, we would get a 10-pound Red Cross parcel that had last you for a week, if you were lucky to get one, okay? And if you think a 10-pound parcel of food is a lot, you try it someday, and you'll see how bad it is. Anyhow, when we went on the farm, I remember distinctly, you know, we tried to keep our morale up and as clean as we could, you know, under the circumstances. And we felt, and you know, my other guys on the farm could substantiate it, the people that we encountered on the farm, I don't know, maybe it's a different lifestyle or maybe something I didn't expect, but they weren't as clean as we were. I didn't think they were, you know, as neat as we try to be. And after a short period, they came out better clothed and they looked better. I don't know, maybe they saw us and our attitude or whatever. But I'll also never forget, that these are farm people. So when nature called, they would walk 10, 15 feet away and do what they had to do. And we were astounded. I'm serious. You know, we're people from the city. We farm people may do that. But we would want to find some place like behind a potato mound or something if you had to do something, whatever. But anyhow, that was that. I'll say this too, that luckily these people got to like us, would you believe? You know, it's not a question that we're socializing, but you're interacting with people, and people are people, okay? And you could see they didn't hate us, quote unquote. And so anyhow, we did our jobs such as they were, and I'll tell you this, at one particular point I'm in the hayloft with a couple of the German girls, and one of the girls and I kissed, okay? True story. We kissed once, because the God can't see everybody at the same time, the gods. So, shall I stop?
No, keep going.
And by the way, it's bitter cold, and we're out there,
Excuse me.
called Kartoffelsalmen, picking potatoes. And we didn't have the stamina to keep up with the girls. So luckily for us, when the guard wasn't looking, the girls would jump in our row to help us to catch up. Otherwise, the guard would put his rifle in your gut or your back and say, "Rouse me, rouse," you know, keep moving. And then came, now we get to the point where it's in November of 44. Now remember, there's 48 of us there, and you know, there's cliques. In every crowd, there's people that, you know, bond together, and I was very close to a guy named Charlie Keefe and Jim Motherway, the three of us. So one morning in November of 44, it's pitch black, dark, and we hear the chains coming off the door and the locks, and the guard shouts, Mottola, Rouse, Motherway, Rouse, and Keefe, Rouse. Okay, what's it all about? I don't know. So we get whatever we had, our belongings, and the guard takes us, and he's marching us to the railroad station. Now, during that period, one of the girls knit a pair of gloves for me, which was fantastic. I mean, if you're lucky to get a pair of gloves. And Charlie Keefe and Jim Motherway also had gloves. Not everybody was fortunate to have them. And by the way, once in a while, the girls would sneak out a piece of bread with some lard on it, which was like manna from heaven. Well, anyhow, we're walking to the station, and as we're walking to the station, we see what we call a Gummiwagen. It's a flatbed with 4 rubber wheels with a Polish guy driving, and on the Gummiwagen was 2 Gestapo types with their long leather coats and 3 girls crying with a couple of dogs. Uh-oh, uh-oh. So, again, believe me, I tell you, we have no idea what's going on. So I said to Motherway and Keefe, first of all, you know, got by with the German. Not fluent, but got by a little bit. So I said, don't pretend you don't understand anything if they interrogate you. And I said, let's get rid of the gloves. So we said to the guard, we had a tinkle, so we got in the shrubs and threw the gloves away. You know, I don't know what the hell they're going to charge us with. So they take us to the train station, and lo and behold, they take us back to the prison camp. They put us in the jail, a jail cell in the prison camp for 28 days in this little cell. Now, when we're on the farm, we had straw mattresses. Here, we only have wooden slats on the bed to sleep.
Excuse me.
With a little can in the corner, and that's it.